view either here or on the live stream. So with that, what I would like to do is introduce our first speaker. We've got a Northern California native and MLF and BPT, MLF BPT angler. Started his career with the FLW Tour in 2010 through 2013. 2014, he fished his rookie season on the Bassmaster Elite Series, qualified for 3 consecutive Bassmaster Classics, and has won 2 Bassmaster Elite events. Justin Lucas was also the host of FLW college tournaments and has a strong following among younger anglers, which is our future. He's got a passion for this sport. He's here because he wants to share that with you. And with that, I'd like to have you welcome Justin to the stage.
All right, I got a little clicker here, so I haven't tested it, but hopefully this thing will work. Thank you guys for having me. This is really cool. Excited to be here. And just a little backstory on me. Like Pat said, I grew up in Northern California. I was a son of a marine contractor. So my dad worked on tugboats, barges. He built tugboats and barges, rented them out, worked on bridges in the San Francisco Bay, kept all his equipment in the port of Sacramento. And so I grew up around the water. My dad did not fish. My mom did not fish. But when I got bit with the fishing bug, my mom, actually, it's her fault, she made me go to a friend's catfishing birthday party when I was 12 years old. I know that sounds weird for California, but it's legit. It really did happen. And she had already bought my friend a birthday present, and I didn't want to go. I was too into baseball, too into basketball, everything else. And she had already bought the birthday present, so she forced me to go. And I remember going, sitting on the bank of the Deepwater Channel, which goes to the port of Sacramento where my dad kept all his equipment. And I remember watching this rod tip bounce the very first time I saw a fish bite. And it was a catfish that was about 8 inches big, 10 inches big. And we had a family-sized Dorito bag. We dumped all the chips out, put water in it, and dropped it in there and watched it swim around. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So, yeah. You must be a Dorito fan. All right, so, yeah, or a catfish fan. But anyway, so that was how my love started for fishing. Watching that bite, putting that fish in a bag, watching it swim around. Later, quick story, we took him home, and my friend's it was his birthday. I didn't know catfish could sting you. That was my first day fishing. And he threw one of the baby catfish at me, and it stung me in the knee. So ever since then, I've kind of been afraid from catfish, because my very first experience, I got stung right in the knee, and I remember it swelling up and everything. But anyway, so after that, like I said, my dad being the marine contractor he was, every day after school, we went back to work with my parents. We actually lived pretty far out in the country for California, about 25 minutes outside of any town. And every day after school, we had to go back to work with my parents. And so I was just absolutely ate up with fishing. I was around the water every day for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I actually, could start fishing every single day. So at this point, I'm 12 years old, fishing every single day, just completely falling in love with it. And my grandpa, he was a truck driver. He hauled lumber up and down the state. And he saw how much I was falling in love with it. He wasn't much of a fisherman himself, but he bought a little aluminum boat, or he had a little aluminum boat, and he actually laid a deck out on it. This was like his catfishing striper rig, and he laid a deck out on it, put a trolling motor on it, so we could start bass fishing. And I was still 12 at this time. We start having a great time. I turned 13. He sees that I'm absolutely loving it. He goes out, buys a 16-foot fiberglass boat. My grandma is pissed at him. And she was pretty furious, but I think it worked out all right. So he bought a 16-foot boat, and we started fishing little tournaments together. And when I say I started in the bottom of tournament fishing, I literally started in the bottom, because I was 13 years old, and we were in a 16-foot boat with a 90 horsepower rig. So we were in a category of 0 to 100 horsepower in team tournaments out west in California. And it was called the Future Pro Tour. And anyway, I remember being out there, and later that year, got my first job. I'm 13, and I'm working at a pumpkin patch, picking Indian corn, gourds, and selling pumpkins to adults. I'm 13, riding a bike to this field that's down the street, or mile, 2 miles down the street, and making $5 an hour under the table. The next spring, we go to a tournament in Lake Berryessa. My grandpa and I didn't have any success in tournaments that first year. The next spring, we go to a tournament at Lake Berryessa, the first one. It was in February, and we won $641. And my grandpa, ever since he had bought that boat, he never drove the boat. He never ran the trolling motor. He always backed me in. And so I was getting all this experience at 13, 14, really early on of controlling the boat, running the boat, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we win $641. He gives me half. He paid for everything. But I'm like, man, I have to pick a lot of Indian corn, gourd, sell a lot of pumpkins to make half of what I just made fishing. And so literally at that point, quit basketball. I had already quit baseball. I remember my coach in basketball trying to talk me into staying around and playing JV. I'm like, dude, my dad's 5'6". It's not looking so hot for me. I'm going to fish. And he's like, yeah, but you could still play and fish. I'm like, no, you don't get it, man. Like, I'm ate up with this really, really bad. So that's my backstory. And as Pat said, I grew up, in Northern California, but I've lived in Alabama for 14 years now. So a third of my life, I'm 37. I've lived there for 14 years. Absolutely love Alabama. It's a great place to fish. And really what brought me there was growing up in California. Aaron Martins was huge, huge guy that I looked up to. All the guys out west, Skeet, Brent Ayler, Brett Height, a lot of those guys. But I saw Aaron, I remember, watching him as I'm growing up, and I see him leave Southern California, move to Alabama, and that's when his career really, it was already taking off, but that's when the trajectory really shot up. And in my mind at a young age, I'm like, it's gotta be because he's centrally located. He doesn't have to, go all the way back to Southern California after every event. That's gotta be a big plus. His family's there with him. That's gotta be a big plus. And there's all, I start breaking out on, I think it might have been MapQuest back then, but I'm like looking at the map going, man, Alabama's pretty centrally located. This is the spot. Aaron did it. I'm going to do it. So start out doing the college thing, doing the MC work for the college when it started. Met my wife through the Auburn fishing team. I met her sister, and she said, you need to meet my sister. I said, no, I just moved to Alabama. I'm trying to fish. Broke up with my girlfriend back there. Then she showed me a picture, so I sent her a message on Facebook. And that was pretty much it. So that's how I knew I wanted to be in Alabama. I'm already moved there. Then I see the picture of my wife, and I'm like, this is the spot. And so anyway, happily married now for, I think, 11 years, 12 years, and we have 2 kids. So that's me. That's my backstory. And so we'll start getting into it. But appreciate you guys being here, like I said. And do I go green for forward, I'm assuming? Okay, that would make sense. Let's push it one time. I'm going to talk today about how to generate income as a bass fisherman. I guess that might have been up there for a minute, but passion to profession as a bass angler, how to generate income as a bass fisherman. Just to kind of talk about the way I went about it. Obviously, times are changing and evolving, so, the way that I went about it might not be the perfect and best way anymore, but it can at least be a starting ground, that we can build off of. So, in my mind, as a bass fisherman, there's, if you're wanting to spend your time on the water, there's really 3 different, avenues to take. And how many people in here, I feel, is it most everybody walleye, crappie? I know, right? Okay, do we have bass fishermen in here? We do. Sweet. Awesome. All right, this is great. After dinner last night, I'm like, I'm talking to a bunch of walleye guys tomorrow. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. Oh, this is cool too. I got it right here. So we'll go back to here. I feel like there's 3 different paths to take as a bass fisherman, right? If you want to spend your time on the water, you want to make money being on the water. And that was always my thing growing up. When I fell in love with it, this is pre-social media. So I fall in love with fishing. And obviously I started watching Bassmaster and see the classic and see the magazines and watch TV shows. But that was all there was at the time, right? And so I fell in love with fishing and competitive fishing, and that was the route that I decided to take. Several years later, obviously now social media, angler influencer, and really at the end of the day, if you want to go back to tournament angler, I was, I don't know, people started saying, well, you're just an influencer. And I was kind of like, I don't like that. But at the end of the day, you really are, because even pre social media, when it was just TV and traditional media print and all that, you're still an influencer. You still have to, promote, sell product for companies that you're working with. And my goal early on, which we'll get to, but it was to, I had some good advice when I was young to be working with, get your foot in the door with companies that you believe in the product, you want to work with, and it's going to make your career a lot easier. And boy, is that true, because now, even more so, how important that is with live cameras everywhere now. You can't hide what you're using anymore. And so it's really, really important, if I can hit home on one thing, is to work with companies that if you're trying to be a tournament angler or even a social media angler influencer, it's going to make your job a lot easier if you're making videos on products that you like and enjoy using. If you don't enjoy using them and they're not good products, it's going to make your job a lot tougher if you're going out there trying to make content and videos and everything. And the same goes for guiding. That's our last one. If you're taking your clients out there guiding and you're sponsored by X company and you're not catching any fish and you pull out another brand, it's not a great look. Obviously, all fishermen are going to not just be 100% strictly loyal to one brand that they're using every time they're on the water, because no company has everything. But the goal for me, is to use as much sponsored product as possible. And, it makes it a lot easier when you believe in the company and the products they make. So let's start out with tournament angler. And this is the fishing part. So obviously, did not have high school fishing when I grew up. I'm throwing this in there. We got one young guy out here. Not sure if he's still in high school or not, but high school fishing is a big part now. And I used to be scared to tell people I fished in high school because it wasn't cool in California, and didn't tell them I listened to country music either. But anyway, all that came out. So high school fishing, number one. And you see on the third one down, I have co-angler teams. We'll get there in a sec. But the teams really can start, I should have put a slash up there with high school fishing, because you can definitely start even younger than that, obviously. And I think there's even middle school fishing now, but I'm not super up to date with all that stuff. So high school fishing, college fishing, co-angler teams. And so for me, this is where I really got my start. I got started before high school and college fishing, and I started to go to school. There was a community college just down the road from where my mom and stepdad lived. I was living at home with them, trying to save money, trying to fish. And I remember just packing my stuff up one day and leaving school. My mom was a school teacher, and coming back home, she's like, "You're supposed to be at school right now." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not going anymore." And she was not happy about that. But I was fishing as a co-angler at the time, and I had just won a boat as a co-angler. So I'm 19, living at home. I actually won a boat with a friend a few months before that. So I was starting to have some success. And I'm like, keep in mind there wasn't college fishing. Might have changed my mind, so I don't advise people to do exactly what I did. But at the time, I'm like, if I treat being a co-angler as my school and my college and get out there and learn as much as I possibly can, soak everything up like a sponge, maybe she'll understand. She didn't really understand that part. But a couple weeks later, I win a tournament up on the Columbia River. And at that time, it was the National Guard Western division for FLW. I won 25 grand. And then a few weeks after that, I win another one. And so she kind of, at that point, came around. I'm like, "Mom, I promise I'm all in on this. I'm doing everything I possibly can to learn I'm not going to waste this money. I'm going to use it. I'm going to move to Alabama one day, like have all this stuff planned out. And so that was really where I got started. Was the teams, obviously with my grandpa, but starting to have success as a co-angler and also learning as a co-angler. So it was, and I feel like it's kind of like a lost form now, right? Like I feel like co-angling is not what it used to be. I don't know, because I feel like high school and college fishing have kind of changed it, where people come out of college or young guys come out of college and everybody has a choice to make their own opinion. But I see more guys coming out of college going straight to trying to fish as a pro. And that works for some guys, right? Jordan Lee, who actually fished as a co-angler, he practiced with me for a tournament as a co-angler once, and then he fished a couple events as a co-angler. But Jordan Lee's one that comes to mind, and several other guys that just come out straight out of college and they're fishing bass opens and stuff like that. My only thing with it is that it's also it's a really quick way to go into a lot of debt too, because you're 22, 23 years old, traveling around the country trying to do this, and it's very expensive, as you guys know. And so I always looked, at fishing when I was younger, like, and this has changed. This is one of the things that has changed, and we can admit this. But I looked at fishing when I was younger, and I tried to make a goal for myself. I looked at fishermen hitting their prime in their late 30s, early 40s, because it was so knowledge based back then, that I wasn't in a rush to just start fishing as a pro. I wanted to fish as a co-angler to gain that knowledge, and also to hopefully have success to be able to fund that step up. That was a big thing for me, and that's always been a really important thing for me, is getting good enough at the level that you're at, and just being real with yourself. Like, where am I good right now? Am I good in teams? Okay, if I'm a team angler right now, let's dominate teams. Let's use the money I'm going to make from the teams to move up to the next level. Am I a co-angler right now? Okay. Am I going out there? Am I learning as a co-angler? Is this having a positive influence on me? And am I doing well as a co-angler? Because I always had these people tell me, man, fishing as a co-angler sucks. You don't get to pick where you go. I'm like, that's the point. Like, you don't get to pick where you go. You are there for the ride. You're trying to learn. And even on the worst days, I always treated those days as, okay, we're not catching many fish today. I'm watching a lot of people go by. I'm learning where people are fishing on lakes. And I always had the mindset as a co-angler that it was never going to take near the weight as a pro, right? So if it takes 20 pounds as a pro, in my mind as a co-angler, I was always like, what do I have to do to catch 12 pounds? And so I always made my cast thinking about, let me get a sip of water real quick. I always made my cast thinking about, all I need is a 2-pounder. There's got to be 2-pounders all over this lake, wherever we're at. So co-angling for me, big part, but being real with yourself and being honest about where you're good at, where your level is, and fishing that level until you're ready to move up. And really, if you're making enough money and you're starting to dominate and people are saying your name, when you show up, you're probably ready to move up. So competitive fishing, obviously is performance based, and so you got to look at it that. And if you're not good enough, there's, like we showed here, there's other avenues to take, and you can do that. There's nothing wrong with any of that. So co-angler teams, next step up. We didn't have these out west. We did have Bass Nation Federation, but BFLs, these really get you in the front seat, starting to make decisions as a boater. Toyota Series, Bass Opens, AAA, I consider these AAA level. And are you having success at this level? This is where it's kind of like the make or break, in my opinion. And this is where it does cost a lot of money to do it. But if you're having success, there's a chance you should definitely be able to move up. And then finally, the Bass Pro Tour and Bass Elite. So the business part. The big thing for me early on the business part, I knew, and this, we're talking back in 2004. I graduated 2004. Yeah, so 2004, 2003, 2005, obviously watching Skeet, Reese, Aaron, and the guys from out west, and then just watching professional fishing, I'm like, you have to be good at talking, and you have to be able to sell a product, and you have to have sponsors if you want to make a living in this industry. That has not changed. That is still the case today. And at the end of the day, really what MLF and Bassmaster are, they're platforms for us to promote our brand and to promote our sponsors, and build up that following. So really, you make your money in the industry. I don't care how good you are at fishing. If you can't do the business part of it, it's going to be really, really tough to make a living. And it's going to be more stressful too, because if you have to go out there and fish based off of strictly performance. Now, I still fish based off performance. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm very competitive. I want to win every tournament, and I love going out there and having fun and being a consistent angler. That's kind of how I've built my name. But if you have to go out there and catch fish to get paid every single time, very, very stressful. And that's why you can like your career will most likely start that way, and even maybe as an influencer or anything else, it might start that way. But once you start to generate some income, and you don't have to, for me, I didn't have to rely on tournament winnings. That's when the game really starts to change, and that's when you see professional fishermen. Anyway, I feel like that's when you start to see them peak, because they don't have to worry about the financial stress anymore. They can go out and fish freely, and they really open up as an angler, and they start to become a better angler than before because they don't have that stress. So with all that said, getting your foot in the door. If you're starting to have success at the Bass Opens, Toyotas, what I was doing at the time when I was having success, because I'm also very cheap too, I like to save money. I was working at a tackle store, and I had a discount that I always had at that tackle store, Fisherman's Warehouse in California. And so what that allowed me to do, though, is start to meet all the sales reps and the right people in the industry that helped me get my foot in the door. So I've been with Pure Fishing since 2007, and only got that deal because I was working at a tackle store, knew other guys working at other tackle stores, found out who the rep was, got introduced to him, and that's how I got my foot in the door with Berkeley and Abu Garcia. It wasn't until 2014, so 2007 years later, I was fishing as a co-angler and then started fishing as a pro in 2010, but it wasn't until 7 years later, making the Elite Series, that I actually finally started to get paid by Pure Fishing. So it was a relationship that I loved the product. I believed in the company at a young age. I really enjoyed working with the rep, and in my mind, I'm like, this is something that's worth holding on to, trying to build this relationship and turn it into something else. So the other thing is team deals. We talk about boats and boat team deals. That's a big thing to starting to get your foot in the door. Another example of that for me, 2014, I ran my first Phoenix boat. I'm like, this thing is unbelievable. Absolutely fell in love with it. Look them up online. They're an hour and a half from where I live. Like, I'm going up there and introducing myself. And I hadn't won a tournament as a pro or anything. I was fishing as a pro, having a little bit of success, but went up there, introduced myself, toured the factory, and not only did I love the boat, I loved the way the factory was set up. Everything was so clean. The people were great, family feel. I'm like, I got to get my foot in the door with this company. This is a great company. They make a great product. So that's kind of how my team deal, or my deal with Phoenix, started, and I've been with them ever since 2015. So when you make these relationships, or when you start to get introduced to these people, and the relationships are really, really important. And that's one thing that I'll say, that the veterans of our sport, I'm not sure if I'm there yet. I've been doing this 14 years. I don't know. Do you know what technically qualifies as a veteran? God, I pluck gray hairs out of my beard every morning, so I'm trying to stay young, but they keep coming back. But this is one thing that the veterans in our sport, I feel like, have done such a good job. And guys that I looked up to a lot, is before social media, they were really good at building relationships and having that personal connection with sponsors. and we're human. So I still feel like that's very important today, even though social media is such a big thing, and it's so powerful and everything else. Talking through your phone, being on the phone, all that stuff on the computer, but still having that personal relationship with people, I feel like goes a long way. So this is still really important to me. And when you get your foot in the door, this is your chance to build those relationships. You show them that you're a professional on and off the water. You show them that people go up to them and they have good things to say about you. You don't ask them, obviously, to go up to them and say, but you're well spoken of, and everybody just gets it. This guy is a professional, on and off the water. He's catching them. He has great communication as a guy that we sponsor. If you're looking at it from the sponsorship perspective and you're on the other side of this building relationship, how's your communication? Are you getting back to emails, texts, phone calls on time? Then obviously willing to work shows. Is your social media growing? All this stuff is important. And are you a good promoter? Are you selling product? And that's where I wasn't sure where to put this part, but building your brand, that's where this comes in, and it could have gone in above that. I mean, potentially could go even above getting your foot in the door is building your brand. And just not as an angler, but who are you as a tournament angler, and start sharing that knowledge, build that trust with people now on social media. If you can build that trust with people, I do think it's really cool on social media. At first, with the YouTube stuff and everything, I was like, I don't know how to think about all this. But at the end of the day, I'm like, thought about myself, and I went back to, I just want to make a living fishing. And tournament fishing was what I fell in love with. And I just always told myself, as long as I don't go broke doing this, this is what I want to do. I absolutely love this. So at first, all this, there was negativity about YouTube fishermen. I'm like, dude, good for these people. Like, this is awesome. They have essentially the same mindset I do. They want to make a living fishing. Has it changed the, dynamic of sponsorships and everything else in the fishing industry? Absolutely. But there's no right or wrong. So, this, I feel like this is really important, is building your brand. And if you're doing it as an angler, for me, I was a West Coast dude, moved to Alabama, brought my finesse fishing techniques out here, started having success in tournaments on them, and then become a dad, family man. And that's what I've been sharing, as a personal level on social media. But people have seen, I build that trust. They've seen me win tournaments. They see me talk about, the finesse techniques and everything that I grew up doing out west and bringing that back here, having success, and then talking about it. So I feel like that's helped, build the trust in people when they see me, win a tournament. But you can do that without winning tournaments, just sharing everything on social now. You can do that too. You can build that trust. So, and then showing your value. As a tournament angler, showing your value, obviously, I always thought, for me, I'm going to build, I'm going to show my value by being a consistent tournament angler, having consistent performance. So, number one thing for me was just always focusing on fishing. Hold on one sec. Oh, try not to knock that over. The number one thing for me was always just focusing on fishing. And I felt like if I focused on fishing and fished well and was doing well in tournaments, I could keep up with everything else, the promotion side, but all of the extra stuff would kind of come and start falling into place. So showing your value, the consistent performance, gives you industry credibility. So when you talk, people do, they listen to what you have to say. You're winning tournaments, you're doing well, you're having success on social media, whatever. Showing your value as an angler, is your social media growing? I was very fortunate, not going to lie, to get into professional fishing and start having success right around the time Instagram and Facebook took off. So that's what really built up my following, was winning tournaments at the time that all of this was starting to blow up. And so I'm in a different position than somebody that's trying now, with the market so flooded and everything. And so I don't know my best advice for that, because I didn't go through that, other than, just being real, constantly, sharing the authentic you. and trying to build it that way. So showing your value is still important in traditional media. Just filmed with Wired to Fish a couple months ago. Headed up to a tournament in Table Rock Lake. It was Toyota Championship, and I went up, a day and a half early to get in some time filming with Wired to Fish. So that stuff is traditional media, definitely still important, but obviously social media is a big part of that too. And then just, your not just your brand, but are you a positive influence on the brands that you're representing, and are you representing their brands well? And then the big one here, and I highlighted this because I feel like this is one of the things that does get lost when you talk about tournament anglers, social media, and people, try and compare them or whatever. But the one thing for tournament anglers that I'll say that I feel like this is going to be a hard one to ever take away from tournament anglers or not give them credit for, but it's product development. As tournament anglers, you are put in, whatever conditions are thrown at you, you're against the best competition or whatever level competition you're at. But companies need reliable, good information to make better products. And so this is something I'm really proud of as, as an angler myself, and some things that I've helped Berkeley out with. And Abu Garcia is, I love going to these meetings when we get a chance once a year, once every couple of years, and sitting down, in a group like this, not quite this big, but being able to give my feedback and how can we make something better? How can we come up with something new? One of my good friends, he's one of the engineers at Berkeley, and man, his mind is unbelievable how smart, actually a couple of these guys, soft plastics guy and hardbait guy, but their mind and the way they think is so different than me. They have the ability to make these baits, but I have the experience and time on the water and know what it's going to take, not just me, other anglers, other professionals that have this, time on the water and all the experience. So I feel like when you mesh those two things together, you really get, a great chance to make great products. And so I say that because I've always kind of said this, and people always ask me my opinion on the newest rig, and I'm like, has it won a professional tournament yet? And if the answer is no, I'm like, I don't know about it then. And I'm not the guy to just go experiment with totally new things. If I get some time in the off season, I will, some off the wall stuff, and I have this off season. I've gotten to fish a lot more than normal, so if I've experienced with some pretty off the wall stuff this season. But to me, until a product can win a professional tournament, number one, I mean, the needle might be moved, I guess, right? If you do enough infomercials and stuff, you might be able to move the needle that way. But I believe that the legit recognition a bait or technique needs, to really move the needle in sales and show this bait or technique as tournament winning. This thing can win a 2, 3, 4 day tournament. Heck, even a 1 day BFL. If it can win that, those are super hard to win. So being a part of those product development and coming up, as a professional angler with new baits like that, I think is really cool, because I think that has a big influence on the rest of the market. And it gives, at that point, then it gives the guys on social media, let's take Berkeley. They sponsor, several people with social media now. Just as an example, we go out last year at Red Crest and get Berkeley coal shads the day before the tournament. Now, getting them on time isn't always the easiest part, but we get them the day before Red Crest at Lake Norman last year. Nobody had heard about a coal shad at this point. Totally quiet. Us as anglers start having success with it on live, and it's like all of a sudden wildfire. And what's cool about it is when the professionals have success with it, and then you get the social media guys, influencers, everything behind it, also showing them talking about it, having success with it, the rate things can grow and get out there in front of people. And all of a sudden, within 2 days, it's like, what is this Berkeley coal shad? And props to Berkeley, by the way. They sent the first ones out, and they didn't run right. They had poured a little too much plastic, and they made it right. So really proud of them for that. But that's your ideal situation in my mind. You know, is using the pros to catch them in a tournament, catch fish in a tournament with a bait, and then and then letting the social media blow up with everybody else. So with that said, we're going to move over to social media angler influencer. Obviously, this is not the route that I went. I'm a tournament fisherman, but if I was going this route, this would be my mindset, right? What is your brand? At the end of the day, are you an entertainer, or are you a fisherman, or are you both? And find a niche or niche. I actually looked up how to say that this morning. You can say it both ways. I've always been confused on that. So find a niche and stick to it, right? So are you a kayak fisherman? Do you do tackle reviews? Are you a traveling fisherman, going to new places, and sharing that experience, whatever? Something that I've learned that's really important too is identifying your target audience and really, in my opinion, not being too broad. I feel like people will, their target audience, they try and think, I got to do all these kinds of videos to reach all these kinds of people. And I feel like when you get laser focused and, you know what you are, you know what you do, and you know your target audience, focusing on that, right? And those people, and keeping those people happy, because it's unbelievable on YouTube, like, how one guy's demographic can be totally different than another just on the way, he presents himself in the videos and everything and the information he's sharing or whatever. So I would say if this was me going this way, identify your target audience and don't be too broad with it. Be really laser focused with that. And your niche too, right? Like that can be in there too with not being too broad. Stick to what you know, stick to what you're an expert in, and share everything about that. If I was doing social media and strictly social media, creating videos, posts consistently, and on brand, with your niche and with your audience, and storytelling, good information, and the big thing is just adding. In what way are you adding value to the people that are watching? Are you teaching them? Are you entertaining them? What are you doing to hold their attention and keep them around for a while? And showing your value. So this is different than professional fishing or tournament angling, because really, I think at the end of the day, this is social media, data driven sales with codes. I see this a lot with social media influencers. Go buy this, use this code. So proving all of that, right? And if this is me trying to make it this way, I would do all of this, and I would be like, I would be trying to make multiple videos every day if this was the route that I was wanting to go. Assuming you have time or whatever, make the time really. So the last one we'll talk about real quick, and then we can do some questions. But guiding, and guiding is, people always ask me if I guide. I've never guided. I'm too competitive. I'll probably try and beat my clients, which would not be. It would not be a good thing. I'd probably have a 1-star review on Google for my guide service, But anyways, and I just not a good. I don't do. I like going out there and catching fish. Let's just say that. So, guiding. I think this is all these ways. Don't get me wrong. All these ways are really tough to make a living, right? Like, making a living in the fishing industry is not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. No matter if you're a social media influencer, tournament angler, whatever. But the first thing that came to mind when I was guiding is, okay, if I was going to be a guide, number one, am I an expert on a lake, and what lake is that, and is the lake close? Like, to me, I would be thinking about expenses right off the bat, because I did reach out to a friend that's a really well-known, reputable guide, and he's telling me, if you're a guide and you make $60,000 to $80,000, that's that's kind of on the high end for bass fishing anyway. So my thought process instantly was like, if I was a guide and I didn't live close enough to a lake, like I wouldn't want to drive an hour every day. So I would, in my mind, if I was going to guide, I would try and get as close as possible to a lake, drive that Yamaha with the RPMs down every day to save some boat fuel, and do it that way. But in my mind, if I'm building this is I'm focusing on successful catching, right, and teaching, And I would just try and be different. Like, show the client that I'm working harder than any other guide they've ever been with. And by doing that, busting your butt, I feel like you could charge more and potentially make, more money as a guide. I feel like my friend told me that about guiding. I'm like, dude, I could go crush it as a guide if I really wanted to. I would just focus on, making every single experience with these people. And I know it's monotonous because you do the same thing every day, but you also have to remind yourself, like, some people are in their guides and like, you don't get it, dude. But, you have to remind yourself every day it's a new client, it's a totally new person. Let's make this, the trip of a lifetime, because how much of it is also built off a referral, right? So when you have this experience with these people and you give them this great experience and they go back and tell their friends, and that business starts to build, as that business builds too, and you build that clientele, at some point you can go back and tell those people, hey, like, I saw Josh Jones post a couple days ago. He's a forward-facing sonar guy, does these guide trips. He's charging $2,000 a day now and sells out within minutes. And I'm like, good for that guy. Like, he's an expert in his craft. He's an expert at doing the forward-facing sonar, and people are willing to pay that. So, I would, as a guide, I would also think about that. Can you be an expert in a craft? Can you also share that on social media while you're guiding? Is there a way to do that? And then is there a way to take advantage of, of your guiding income, and then also, being able to charge more because you're an expert in the craft, but then potentially making some money off of sponsors because of that as well. So my focus would be building up that repeat clientele and showing your value for companies, for product as a guide. I think it's really hard to make money just as a guide off of sponsorships from what I've heard, but you can still show your value. You're going to go through a lot of equipment, a lot of bait, line, everything else. So getting free product, it has a lot of value as a guide. So are you a good product tester for the company? Are you doing social media, promoting them, direct sales? And, I said it was hard to get paid. I just think as a guide, it's going to be hard to get money unless you can show them, from a social media standpoint, other avenues that, you're helping them make sales and make progress. So anyway, I think, where are we at? 9:42, 10 minutes. So we're at a questions part, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Doesn't even have to be about business part. It can be about anything. So this is the awkward part where nobody raises their hands. Oh, we got one. You're good. No, you just saved me. So go ahead. Yep. Yeah, that's how things have changed, right? So I feel like having success just on social media now is almost, um, almost in a way, just having that success, viral videos, that type of stuff is like equivalent to me winning tournaments. So I'm trying to do, and ever since then, I've been trying to do a good mixture of both. Not that I get viral videos, but trying to do my part on social media, take advantage of, winning AOY. I would say the one thing AOY did for me was just gave me that credibility, and where people, really, I'd won a couple tournaments before that, but they gave me the credibility of, man, look at this guy. He came from California, he moved to Alabama, he wins AOY. Who is this guy? What does he have to say? And so I feel like it gave me a platform to talk, and people trust what I have to say, because I've been with Berkeley a long time. I got a lot of fish on Berkeley base that year. And I don't know. I mean, hey, you left that off my credentials, by the way. Yeah, you're gonna have to come back next year. So, but it's been a very good thing for my career. I would say the biggest impact it had is not only that, with people, being able to trust what I say and treat me as a legitimate fisherman, but just also, keeping those relationships really close with sponsors, because I've pretty much had the same sponsors ever since then. There might have been a couple small changes, but for the most part, I've been able to hold on to everything, and that's been really important for me. And man, I love loyal sponsors, and I love being loyal to sponsors. Like, I don't want to go anywhere. I love what I'm using, and I don't want that to change. Go ahead. Uh-oh. I just feel like you have to go above and beyond, right? Like, what is asked of you? What is asked of you in the contract, and then what else can you do on top of that? And basically, never say no. You're working for multiple different people, and it's on you when you get to that point. How many companies do I want to work with? How much time do I have? And this has been a struggle for me now. I'm at a different point in my life. I'm 37 now. I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. And people ask what, the hardest part about being a professional fisherman is. There's literally, I mean, it's hard to go out and catch fish. And I would say the toughest part. The toughest part is just being away from family and coming back. And I have a 2-year-old that's saying words that he wasn't saying the week before I left. And that part to me is really tough. So back to that is like, how much am I willing to take on as a pro? Because also, or as a sponsored angler, because in my mind, I'm also going to go above and beyond the best that I can of what I'm committing to them. So I don't want to go overboard. I don't want to commit to too much that I can't fulfill. And so just finding that balance. But, dude, I mean, my sponsors pay for me to, I feel like, have the best job in the world. I'm like, what can I do for you? You just name it, and I'll be there. But can't create more time. So just finding that balance. You should see my calendar on my Google my Google phone and calendar is crazy. I never thought it would look like this when I was 13 years old, but didn't think they'd have Google on a phone when I was 13 either. So anyway, but it's fun. I enjoy it. I love it all. There's nothing bad to say. Like, dude, being able to get out on the water and make money being on the water to me is amazing, whether you're a professional fisherman or not. Yes. What's up? Yeah, totally different. And I'm gonna be the first one to tell you, I don't do the best job of it. But after winning AOY, probably, let me think, 1 or 2 years after, I went to YouTube school. Basically, went through a fall course on how to edit on Final Cut Pro. I'm like, I didn't start fishing to be a video editor, but I'm like, if I'm gonna do this and if I'm gonna continue to grow my social and show my value on social, I need to be able to know how to do this. And like I told you, I was cheap. So I'm like, I don't want to pay somebody else to do this. So how do I do it? And so I watched YouTube and I learned how to do it. And I would say that's the biggest thing, is just is learning how to do that and just changing as the time goes. Like I said, I'm not the best at it. There's people that can go out there and create videos every single day. Dude, it is so hard. But at the end of the day, I also fall back to, why did I fall in love with it? I fell in love with it because of that first bite with the catfish, putting that fish in a Doritos bag, tournament fishing. Like, that's what I'm going to build my brand off of. Social media and everything can be a part of that, but I want people to look at me and go, that's an intense tournament fisherman right there. Like, that dude, he's going to catch some fish. And I've fished more this offseason. I'm 37 years old. I fished more this offseason than any other offseason ever before because of the times changing with the age and technology and everything. I'm like, I'm not ready to get beat. So, dude, I'm like, I can't wait to get to Toledo Bend in a few weeks. I'm fired up because I'm like catching all these big fish this off season and just having fun learning and making sure that I'm keeping up as a competitor. So it's tough to balance, your skills and editing videos and social. If you get somebody to do it for you, whatever, it's still, you just got to find that balance. It's not just fishing. Anything else? Yep. I'm gonna have to kick you and him out. You guys are trying to get me go down rabbit holes I'm not going down. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me, Pat. Yeah. So I like the times before forward-facing sonar better. So I'll say that. I'm not afraid to say that on record. I have a blast catching them on forward-facing sonar, but it is completely changed tournament fishing. And I told Brandon Polnick yesterday, him and I are texting about settings on our hummingbirds, and I'm like, dude, it makes me more proud to have success pre-forward-facing sonar and to get in this industry before that because it is so different now. So my focus this off season has been how do I get better with it? I'm not sponsor limited to certain graphs. That was a big thing for me. In 2020, I actually went that route. I said I knew in the fall of 2019 after having some conversations. One in particular is Bart Langley. He told me he used to own Bass Mafia, but good friend of mine, and he told me you better get on this train. And I quit working with a sponsor to be able to put everything that I wanted on a boat. And I won 2 tournaments that summer because of it. And that's when it blew up. So I've been using it for years, but even though I've been using, we were talking about this at dinner last night, even though I've been using it since 2020 and won tournaments with it now, I'm not an expert on it, but I want to be. Like when I lay my head down at night, I'm thinking about like, all right, if I shine it at a rock this way and the fish swims out that way, like I'm literally thinking about that stuff when I go to bed. So, it's changed the game. I don't know what the future holds. I'm not the one to make the decision. Like I'm not gonna sit here and fight one way or the other because it is a blast to catch fish on forward-facing sonar. It's really cool. The coolest thing it's taught me is just attitude of the fish, and I'm like, what? They do that out there like that? Like that doesn't make sense. Well, nothing we ever did, it made sense to us as we were doing it, but it's changed everything. Are we good? Okay. Thank you, guys. Hopefully.